Hey there, my name is Lexi, and thank you so much for tuning in for another tutorial with me. In this tutorial, we're going to be talking about the click track and the count off, how to use it in your session, and different features and aspects of it. I'm going to be using an example of a session that I've done. This is my song called In the City. It's not done, but it's a work in progress. I'll let you hear a little bit of it.
I came to the A for the big bang. Yeah, I came with a dream, gotta get that. Yeah, if you ain't about that with it, why you with me? If you ain't paying, I don't really want you near me. If they ain't coming up the cake, Lexi gotta make them wait. And if they say they want a mediate, I swear I can't relate. Since I came up out of Texas and I made it to the A, I've been counting all the money that I said I gotta make it. Yeah, in the city, yeah, yeah, in the city.
That's the hook.
In the city, yeah, yeah, in the city, yeah.
But none of that really matters. I just felt like playing my song for you. So what is going to matter in this tutorial today is going to be the count off and the click track. So first off, before you even create a click track, in my opinion, the beat that you have, make sure that you've already analyzed it, whether you're using mixed in key. And this will basically analyze the song for you, tell you the key of the song and the tempo. Make sure that the beat is already analyzed and you already know at least your tempo for your session. I've already gone ahead and analyzed my beat, and you see that it says 150. So I set the tempo in my session to be 150 as well. So after I made sure that was settled, you want to look at the transients in your song, and the transients are basically where you see these huge beats in the song. So it's like maybe if a kick drum hits or a snare drum kicks, you'll see like these little peaks in the audio waveform. Those are your transients. The big ones are here, here, here. I am in grid mode, so I'm going to make sure that those transients are hitting on the grid in time with this 4/4 time code. So the way that I made sure that the waveform is on grid is, let's just use this as a quick example. If you imported your song and you set your tempo and you zoom in on one of these transients and you see, oh my God, the big transient is not on grid. So I use a thing called tab to transients, which is this button right here. Every time you hit the tab button on your keyboard, it'll direct you to the next big transient in the song. And you can kind of see the pattern of what a transient looks like from doing that. So I'm going to press A to delete everything to the left of that. I'm going to scoot that transient over so it's on the grid and extend out the rest of the beat because the rest of the song doesn't matter. And now you can hear every beat that the transients are hitting. It's now on grid.
Coming off the cake, Lexi gotta make them wait. And if they say they want a mediate, I swear I can't relate. Since I came up out of Texas and I'm...
So the major beats that I want in my song, they are on grid, they're on point. So now that being established, we can create a click track. Now a click track will look similar to like an aux track as far as with this line going through it, and it will actually be labeled click. I don't have a click track in my session right now. To create one, I am going to go to track at the top, and at the bottom of that menu, that drop down menu, it says create click track. And now you can see this click track has been created. I'm going to make that a little bigger so you can see. So this is the click track, and that's what it sounds like. This is what it sounds like on its own. So that is a click track. And of course, you can go in here and change the sound of it. I swear I did this in a different video before, and I still have issues finding it. Factory default. There it is. So when you pull up the plugin click, you can go to the factory default and change the sound of it. If you don't like the digital click of it, change it to a cowbell, change it to marimba, MPC click. That's digital, I guess. And then you can specify by which count you want the accent to be on. I'm going to do the factory default because that works just fine for me. So that's something else to keep in mind when you're using the click track. And let's see now. The reason why it was so important to know the tempo of your song and then to set your transients to the grid to make sure that each beat is hitting on the proper grid of this time code is because the click track is obviously very time sensitive. It's a way to help you stay on beat with the track. If you didn't know the tempo, if you didn't change the tempo of your session to what it's supposed to be for this beat, then there's really no point in you having used the click track basically. So now we can hear that the click track is in the same timing as the beat, as well as it's a what do you call it? As well as being an audible representation of what's happening in the session musically.
Coming off the cake, Lexi gotta make them wait.
You hear that?
If they say they want to mediate, I swear I can't relate. Since I came up out of Texas and I made it to the A, I've been.
So now you can hear that the click track is, like I said, the major transients in this session will probably be, or any session for that matter, will probably be the kick drum and the snare drum. And that's what you want to focus on when you're finding the transients and setting your beat to the grid. So the click track, as you heard, follows those transients. So now we have established the tempo of our session. We have set our beat to the grid so that musically it's hitting in the 4/4 time code. And we have our click track to help us stay on time when we're in the booth. Sometimes some beats can be a little complicated. You need a little extra help. That's where the click track comes in. Now, this especially, the click track can be helpful if, let's say you have a song that as soon as it comes on, you need to know when the track is about to start, because that's when the song starts, pretty much the beginning of the beat. So if I wanted to say a line on this very first beat, obviously it's a lot better for me to have a click track that's coming on before the track to notify me of when the song is about to start, versus me playing a game of tag with the engineer or with myself trying to, tell when that beat is coming back in. There are ways to do it, but the click track just makes it so much more efficient and it's more effective. So this is where the count off comes into play, and it's like a partner tool for the click track. So you can find the count off in this top right hand corner here. If you don't see the count off in your window, then go to this arrow on the right side of your screen, click on that. The count off, it lives on the MIDI controls. So if your MIDI controls is not clicked, then you would not see the count off. Just make sure that MIDI controls has been enabled with the little check mark and your count off is here. Now the count off is not highlighted, so to turn it on, you simply highlight it. And here you can select how many bars of a count off you want. Now a count off, I do have another video that explains the function of a count off and basically how to use it. If you're interested in watching that, then just click on the little eye in the top right hand corner and you can watch that video if you're interested. So, but anyway, the count off basically is an audible representation of when you're going to come in. It gives you a cue basically of you can watch that. We're going to leave it at that. So with this count off, you're going to make sure that it's highlighted and you can actually tell it how many bars of a count off you want. So usually when I'm recording myself, this comes in handy because I don't want to have to push the button and then have to run into the booth because the microphone is not in the same room as my computer. So I set it to something a high number like 8 bars, and that gives me enough time to get into the booth, close the door, put on my headphones, make sure the microphone is adjusted to the nice height for me, and this gives me plenty of time. So this is what a count off of. I'm going to lower it because we don't need that much time, but let's change it to 2 bars and see how that is. Although it would help if I maybe enable a record track, because right now my count off is set to only be active during recording. So I'm going to uncheck that. And this is an important feature when you are using the count off. If you want to hear it, no matter what you're doing in the session, uncheck count off only during record. So I have unchecked that box. I'm going to press OK. And now when I play it, when I press the space bar to play, or if I just press play, then it will give me my 2-bar count off. But again, my click track has been muted. I'm going to unmute it, obviously. And now we can hear the 2-bar count off. Cool. So that's the count off with the click track. It gave me 2 bars, and if I wanted to start my song exactly when the beat starts, then this is a great way to do that. So I'm not even going to say any words, but this is just an example. Baby back ribs in a truck with a handyman. Baby back ribs in a trunk with a handyman. You see what I'm saying? So if you had a song where you wanted your verse or your hook or whatever, your lines to start precisely when the beat starts, then the count off with the click track is a great feature to have. Now, let's say you do not want the click track to continue once the beat actually comes on. So to affect the settings for that, the same MIDI controls box where the count off is, double click where it says 2 bars and this click count off option box appears. So one option that we already briefly went over was the count off. You can choose to have it enabled whether you're recording or not. So I just press the play button and my count off is enabled. Now let's say I don't really need my count off during playback. Playback is when I'm just listening to everything. Like I want to listen to this, but my count off is still on and it's really annoying. Well, if I want to affect that, again, go to this MIDI controls box here where the count off is, double click on 2 bars, and let's say I only want count off when it's time to record. Well, at the bottom of this box where it says count off, you may make sure you check the box that says only during record. So, okay, and now I'm going to go for playback to whatever spot I'm trying to review.
Coming off the cake, Lexi gotta make them wait, and if they say they want immediate, I swear I can't relate.
So now I don't have a count off. Now remember, a count off basically just gives you a little break before the song actually starts, before your recording actually starts. So if you don't want to hear your click track while you're doing this, if you don't want to, if you don't want to hear the click track, if you don't want to hear the click track during your playback, there are 2 ways to do that. You can either go onto the click track directly and mute it. So you can either do that, or you can go up to double click on that 2 bars again, the click and count off options. If you want the click to only be during recording, then simply make that selection. Make sure you press OK so your new settings are, heated. And now I don't hear the click track. So now I don't hear the click track during playback, but if I press record, let me enable a track to record. If I press record, my count off is on and my click stays on during the beat. All right, so let's see. What else do we need to address in here? The count off, you double click on this 2 bars to bring up the options. So the click track during play and during record. So I want to hear my click track all the time. Now my count off is on, that's why it's taking so long. But that makes it so that I will hear my click track, and I also have my count off enabled, so that's why you heard that as well. So my click track plays no matter what. If you only want your click back, if you only want your click track to play during recording, then you make sure that option is selected. And so when I do playback, I won't hear it. I'm going to turn the count off for this example. If I do want to hear it, now since I only want to hear it during recording, now when I press record, you'll hear it. All right. So let's look at these other options here. Oops, pressed the wrong thing. Okay, so there's also play the click track only during count off. So this option is really good for, let's say you only need that count off again because you want to know exactly when the beat starts and you want a good audible representation of when you should hop into the song. So click track only during count off, that's a good option to have to hear before anything starts. So I'm going to turn my count off on because if that's not enabled, then there's really no point in this. So here we go. This is, I want my click track to play only during the count off, but once my beat starts, you should not hear the click. So here we go. All right, so that's one way of doing it. Another way to achieve that same thing that's probably lesser known. You could go through the act of actually sliding your beat down, and then you can manipulate the volume of the click track. So essentially what this line is on the click track is the volume of it. And if I give you an example, let me just solo this so you can hear it. So this is what it is. Although it might help if I had my click track on during play and record so you can hear it. All right, so this is what it is. So this line right here is basically the volume. I can make it non-existent, or I can turn it up and be very loud and obnoxious with it. But I'm going to return it to its neutral volume point. So that's just the volume line. So another way to achieve a count off, only to achieve a click track only during count off, is to actually move your beat back however many bars you need of space, and then you can affect the volume of it. So I'm going to use my little hand tool right here and only select that. I'm going to make a dot here, and I'm going to zoom in and make another dot here. So I'm going to pull this down, and now my click track should be off once my beat starts, because that's what I have manually set it to do. So now, and I'm going to unmute that, and I didn't move my vocals, so bear with me. All right, so that's another way to do it. Going to delete those. If you're wondering how I did that, all I did was highlight it and then highlighted those two dots because that's where my audio line or volume line is being affected. Press delete, and now it's back to normal. If you hover over here, hold Option, and then click, it will also return the levels back to the original settings. A little cheat for those of you who are really listening. Okay, what else do we need to address in this video? So I think that's basically everything. I think we've addressed everything we need to for the count off and the click and how to use those two things together. So just for a quick little recap, to review everything that we've learned in this video, you want to make sure that you analyze your track, or maybe you already know the tempo and the key of it. If you don't already know the tempo or the key, you can use a tool such as Mixed in Key, and it'll actually tell you the key of the song as well as the tempo. Make sure you set your session tempo to whatever your beat is supposed to be. After you've done that, make sure your transients are on grid and on point with all of the hits that you are supposed to be accentuating, I guess. So that's going to be following your kicks and or your snares. Make sure those are hitting on those lines. So my example is here. Boom. Boom. Okay, so I think my kick drum is probably what I'm focusing on when I'm focusing on those transients, those big hits. Make sure those are lined up on your grid. Now, to create a click track, make sure that you go up to track at the top, and then at the bottom of that drop down menu, click on create click track, and your click track will be created. And you can tell because it says click and the volume line is here. If you don't like the sound of this click, you can always change it by clicking on the actual plugin where it says under preset factory default, change it to whatever sound. That's a cowbell, marimba, more digital MPC click. Or you can choose to have the accents on very particular notes. But I don't mind the factory default because I know what it sounds like and it stands out enough for me. Okay. So after you've established those things, you want to make sure that you have the count off present in your control bar, basically. If you don't see it, remember you can go over to the right hand side of the corner, click on this drop down arrow. It's in your MIDI controls. MIDI controls houses the count off and the interchangeable or the partner use of the click and the count off options. So make sure that your count off is enabled by making sure the word count off is actually highlighted in green. And then to affect your settings for the count off and the click tracks together, where it says bars, you will double click on that. Your click and count off options box will appear. And from here, you will be able to mess around with the settings a little bit. So to review, the click. These options here pertain only to your click track. So this is when do you want to hear your click track? During play and record, during playback, which means when I just want to listen to what I've done, and during record. So I'll hear my click track when I'm recording. My count off is on and I'll still hear it. So bam, that's that option. Now, if I want to hear my click track only during record, then I will press that option. So when I do playback, I should not hear it. But if I want to hear my click track during recording, when I press record, I should hear it. And I have my count off on, so it's going to take some time. All right, so the last option for the click track is only during count off. Now, only during count off, again, to review, is if maybe you want to start rapping or singing as soon as the beat comes in and you need that audible reminder of when to start. So I only want to hear my click during the count off. I don't want to hear it once the beat starts. That's what this sounds like. And I have count off on, so this is during recording. All right, there we go. So those are the options for the click. During play and record, only during count off. So now the options for the count off, they're very simple. When do I want the count off to be on? If you want to always have your count off on, that's during playback when you are reviewing everything you've done in the song, then you would make sure this box is not clicked. So I want to hear my count off always. That box is unchecked. I have my count off set to 2 bars. So I'm going to have a count off no matter what happens. I just want to do playback. That's what that sounds like with my click enabled. Or I'm going to have my count off enabled when I'm about to record for 2 bars along with my click track. All right, so if you only want your count off only during record, make sure that box is checked. And now when I go for playback, I shouldn't have to deal with the count off. But when I record, the count off will be enabled. All right, so I think that pretty much covers it. Oh yeah, and if you wanted to know the manual way to have the click turn off as soon as the beat starts, you could push your beat down however many bars you wanted and then affect the volume of the actual click track by manipulating this line here. So this is the volume line. It's at 0 right here. I'm going to turn it off as soon as the song comes on. That's another way to do it. Yeah, so I don't know what that suck line was in the background. Where did that come from? Wait. Where is that coming from? Maybe it's in here. Was that it? Yeah. Oh, wow. I never knew that I said that in the song. Thank y'all for sharing that experience with me. But anyway, yeah, so that is everything you need to know about how to use the click track and the count off together when you are in a session. Again, the benefits of this will be if you're recording by yourself and you don't have an engineer because maybe you're more comfortable recording by yourself. The click and count off together are very powerful tools that you can use to give yourself time to get into the booth and be able to sing your song that way. And if you need a little extra help staying on beat when you're in the session as well. Again, if you want more information on the count off and how to use that, I do have another video on how to use the count off in Pro Tools, as well as how to use loop recording. So once you get comfortable with the click track, the count off, and loop recording, it really makes you a force to be reckoned with when you are your own engineer, and it helps you to become so much more efficient. So I hope you found this video helpful. I hope you got a lot of great tips from it, a lot of great information. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard in this video, and if you would like to see more content like this, be sure to give me a big thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button to let me know that you want to see more, and also feel free to leave comments in the comment section with requests, or you can email me directly at info@lexiatl.com. That's in my description box below. But again, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, peace.